Denver, welcome to Off the Clock. I see you already dressed down with Amapoko jersey and ready to go. So today we're really going to take you on the lane of what do you do after work. Let me just kickstart with the first question. How do you sleep? How's your sleep? I mean, you look like a very happy guy, but do you sleep well?
I actually sleep well, Peter. It's a long story, but I'll try and do it short and quick.
Okay.
But I bought a sauna about 2 years ago, infrared sauna. So every night I sit in there, I've got a good book or I'm watching a Netflix series. I spend at least an hour in there. And I just, I detox.
Okay.
I chat to my wife. We have great conversations, listen to good music. And then when I come out of there, have a good shower, jump into bed, I sleep like a baby.
Okay.
It really works for me.
Some people say they sleep like a baby, like they wake up every
5 minutes and scream.
every 3 hours and cry for like
Oh,
feeds.
no.
Or you like, I mean, how many hours do you do?
I actually sleep well. I try and aim for about 8 hours of sleep.
8 hours.
Because I'm a firm believer in the restorative power of sleep. Right? You know, if you try to get in bed by 10, I'm in bed by about 9. Then we're having conversations, chatting to my wife. I've got no phones around me, so we normally chat or I read a book. And then once I sleep, I actually sleep really well.
Cool. I mean, talking about wife, you married. How many kids?
Married to Brunhilde. We married for 25 years next year.
Wow.
And 3 kids. Amazing partner to have on my life journey. And she's given us 3 amazing kids. I've got a 22-year-old daughter. I've got a 18-year-old son. And I've got a 10-year-old son. Terrible family planner. Don't come to me for advice.
The spacing is like
spacing was not
show,
great.
Huh?
So yeah, 3 kids, and they're all fantastic. They're confident. They're different. They're healthy. Yeah, true blessing. True blessing.
Wow. Do you spend time with your kids all together or individually?
Both. Right. So we try and make time. Dinner is quite a sacred time in the Dreyer family. We try and spend our time around the table. That's the best time to connect with your family, right? Just over dinner, having a meal, and you can sense how your kids are doing during that check-in. So my kids have different love languages. My daughter she's a petrol head, a fanatic. So we love to, I just connect with her on that level. My son just loves being in the gym, so I'll spend time with him there. And the little guy is a judoka, so he does his judo, his self-defense, and I connect with him there. So yeah, he's pretty serious.
Yeah.
So I find my ways to connect with him in a one-on-one space and as a family.
So besides how you spend your time with your kids, like the activities that you do, what do you do when you want to relax? Like, what are your hobbies? What do you find enjoyable and things that bring you joy in your life and just, put your mind at ease?
That's a good one. I enjoy spending time. I read a lot. So I've got a growing library at home. So I just love to just sit in the garden, relax next to the pool, wherever, with my Kindle or the book and read. So that brings me a lot of peace. But I also like spending time making sure that I'm physically healthy. If you have a good mind in a physically sound body, the two work well together. So I spend quite a bit of time doing my CrossFit. I enjoy running, and we're privileged to live in a beautiful area where I can go hiking in the mornings with my wife. So we can do a quick walk, or in the evening. So spending time walking with the dog. So I try to make that time for myself as well, doing those type of things. Yeah.
So spending time with your dogs is also...
Yeah, because my German Shepherd and I have the best conversations in the world. If that dog could speak out, he would tell you all my secrets. Wow. But I would there's nothing better than getting home and the dogs are the first 2 waiting for you at the door. Because that's what dogs do, right? That loyalty.
Wait for
and
the
then when
owner.
you take them for a walk, you're out in the bush, you're sitting down, having a drink of water on a hill, and your dog is just sitting there looking at you like you're the best thing in the world.
So you'd say your dog's a great listener?
Absolutely. Terrible talkers and communicators, but great listeners. There's a lot to learn from dogs.
All right. What's the name what did you name your dogs?
So my German Shepherd's name is Knox, and we got a little miniature Schnauzer, and his name is Klaus.
So who named these dogs?
So we bought Knox from a breeder, and he was from the K generation of the breed. So he came with the name, and we liked it. So there was Cloudy, there was Claudette, there was Klaus, and there was Knox. So we got Knox in the batch.
Interesting. You're talking about, relaxing, food and family. It looks like, you're looking good, you're eating well.
Thanks, Peter.
I mean, how's your diet like? I mean, you can you even cook yourself or you get spoiled?
My wife is the most amazing cook in the world, right? You know, we grew up in Cape Town on the Cape Flats, and food is an integral part. It's what brings your family together. Yeah. So we learned, my wife is a great cook. I grew up with great cooks, and food has always been central to our lives. Sundays was a time with family. So to answer your question in a long way, food has always been central. I've always eaten reasonably healthy. I've lost quite a bit of kilos in the last year because I sort of lost track of where I should be on my fitness journey. So I've started to count calories, eat a bit more healthy, strip out some of the, call it processed foods. Yeah. I try, it's a journey, right? Because you sort of go up one day and then you're down the next, but you generally gravitate towards healthy food. So yeah, try and drink a lot of water, try and eat some good quality food. And again, you know, you're only as good as the food you eat, right? So eating healthy is important.
Yeah. What about your favorite dish? I mean, like, you know, where you heaven on earth for you?
Mutton biryani from my wife. Beautiful, beautiful. A hot mutton biryani. And my mother makes the best lamb chop casserole in the world. Now, she wouldn't give that recipe to my wife. She refuses to, because it's the one thing that gets her son coming back to her dinner table. So my mom's chop casserole, lamb chop casserole, and my wife's mutton biryani.
Okay. So you've like low-key just pinned your wife and your mom against each other right now.
I can't tell my wife that, right? You see that? And a mother, like I'm the eldest son, right? And nobody's going to love the eldest son like the mother. And so my mom will never share her recipes with my
Don't
wife.
forget you on air.
That's okay. It might come. They might see it, but love you, Mom. Love you, Brunilda. Gotta hitch my bed here, Peter.
Do a lot of explaining for that.
Make sure that all the women in your life are happy, man. For happy life.
That is the trick. Absolutely. Look, my parents are in Cape Town, so I get to see them. And I'm blessed that both my mother and my father are still alive. Yeah. So, you know, it's always a great thing. Honor your parents. You spend the time with them while they're alive. And so, yeah, I try and get back home and spend as much time as I can while they're still around.
You can use that excuse. You say to your wife, my parents are still alive. I need to enjoy this time.
I think she's written down those recipes. Her mother was a great cook. You know, in Cape Flats communities, we have bazaars quite often, the church bazaars. And each auntie and tannie and oma brings their speciality. My grandmother's speciality was this coconut apricot tart. Now, she didn't pass down her recipe, so she went to the grave with it. But it was legendary. If you spoke to anybody and you knew my grandmother, they would tell you about her recipe. So food is very important, and passing on those recipes to your families are equally important. So I've made sure that my mother records it, and she keeps it in a safe space in the event of something happening to her. Nice. That chopped casserole recipe will live on.
Put it in a safe deposit.
You're basically saying we're not going to make the same mistake that we did with my grandmother.
That's it. Exactly that. Yeah.
So you grew up in a family of how many kids?
Yeah, 3 kids. So I was the eldest. My brother was about 4. My sister passed away when she was 18.
Oh, so sorry.
It was a terrible event. You know, mental illness, committed suicide. Pretty sad time in our lives. Now, I talk about it because it's important. We live in a world, or in those days, mental wellness wasn't spoken about. And it's so important that we have those conversations, check in on people, see if they're doing okay. And there's no stigma attached to it anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's okay not to be okay. So 3 kids. I'm quite close to my brother. Used to be in the UK for a long time, and they live in Cape Town now. So it's wonderful for my father and my mother to have the families around.
I mean, you keep on mentioning Cape Flats all the time. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have traveled South Africa, most cities. I've been around probably every other town in this country. I can truly say I'm true South African by virtue of having been to, you know, small towns, big towns.
Yeah.
And, you know, Cape Flats is a very tough neighborhood. And here you are. I mean, you've made it, you know, from very humble beginning. Not just humble, but very tough beginning, you know, against all odds. You want to talk a little bit about that?
That's a great point. I get quite emotional when I think about my journey, right? And you think about, you know, why are you the one that's had a relatively successful path? And I mean, I grew up in a pretty violent area. We saw a lot of gangsterism. We saw all the crime that goes associated with that. But the one blessing that I had was parents who created a safe space for their kids, right? And who were almost fixated on the desire to get education through to their kids. So a safe space coupled with that desire to improve yourself through education were major factors. And again, I wasn't just raised by my parents, I was raised by my entire community. You grew up in a little dusty colored township in the Cape. It wasn't just your mom and dad, it was the neighbors. It was the neighbors' neighbors. The entire street raised you. And so I owe much to the people, my community. And it's been a fascinating journey from there to the place that I sit right now. And I was really blessed throughout it.
Wow, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, today you're, you know, a big Denver, the VP CEO of Honeywell. I mean, it's, you know, you're a role model for a lot of
Thanks, Peter.
kids and people who know you. I mean, I come from a big family of 10 kids, believe it or not. So 10 kids. So 10 kids. So it's tough. I mean, competition inside the house, outside the house, everywhere to rise up. You know, I always joke with him and say, you know, cream will always, you know, rise to the top.
So you said, okay, so you grew up in, what is it, the Cape Flats, right? So in that area growing up, what do you think, would you say, like a moment where you'd say an experience took you out of your comfort zone and actually helped to build you as a person during that time in your life?
I was always involved in an organization similar to the Boy Scouts called the Boys Brigade, right? So almost like the Boy Scouts, but with more of a church angle. And so it was the one institution that built a lot of character in young people. You went on camps, you did the survival training, you built inner strength, right? Along with your spiritual strength. I spent a lot of time on these camps, but the one moment which I guess changed me was when I got chosen in 1990 to represent South Africa at an international global conference. I was 1990, I was like 17 years old. I had never flown in my life. And I get to go to Nassau in the Bahamas for a month.
Wow.
And it was incredible. Now, in our culture, in those days, if you went to the airport, all 100 family members went with you.
They're like,
They were all there. They were all there to say goodbye because they were all part of the fundraising. But it was incredible just to spend that time on a global stage, interacting with global young leaders. And it was at that point that I realized, I had grown up at a time in apartheid when you almost thought less of yourself and more of other people. Wow. If somebody had a better accent and a different skin tone, well, they were probably better than you. That's the way that you were raised. But when I got to that global stage and I saw people as my equal and I met young people as my equal, I don't know, it changed something inside me. It made me realize, you know what? As different as we look outwardly, we all similar inside. And that was quite a defining moment for me as a young man. It gave me confidence. It gave me this renewed belief that, you know what, Denver, you can do as much as any other person can do. And I was a young man of 16, 17 years old at that stage. Changed my entire view of the world.
So would you say you've traveled a lot since then? Seen other places?
I've seen all the continents. I've seen a lot of places in the world. I love to travel. You know, the Arabs, you know, in the old days when they launched their ships, they said to live is optional, but to travel is must. And they had this view that travel is so important. It's you know, and it's one thing that I drive into my kids. We went to Thailand recently. It's the most beautiful way to break down any sense of racism or any ism you have, is to travel the world and see how different people achieve the same things, how they eat differently, how they just be people. And so for me, when I travel for business, it's an absolute privilege. I actually enjoy taking time alone, walking around in cities, just sitting in a coffee shop and just watching people. And again, back to that old point, we all look differently outwardly, but inwardly, we got exactly the same fears, exactly the same hopes, exactly the same dreams and fears. It's exactly the same.
Your favorite city globally?
Wow, it's a tough one, right?
Lagos?
Peter, Lagos has an energy that is unmatched. When you've got 240 people in a million people in a country, and so many people in a city all hustling with the energy to do things well, that's incredible. But I love New York City. I love New York City. New York City is incredible, and I love Vancouver. I find that to be a beautiful, beautiful place.
Just amazing.
But like you, it's a long flight, and it's always a benefit when you can turn left on the aircraft on a long flight, because it just makes it so much easier. Otherwise, that 12-hour flight into Frankfurt and then that further 10-hour flight becomes an absolute nightmare.
But I mean, your favorite city on the African continent?
It's Cape Town, city of my birth.
Home.
You can't say you're biased there.
I love Cape Town. I love seeing my family. I love enjoying a Gatsby from Wembley or masala steak whopper. Wembley is an iconic place on the Cape Flats in Athlone, and they serve some of the most amazing samosas, a little dish called a dalchi, and then these. Man, as I talk about it, my mouth is watering here. But Cape Town, but that's gotta be Cape Town. Unbiased, of course.
I can see the lightening up about the food and the cuisine and all that.
Okay, so what would you say is, I mean, we've been talking about traveling the world and all that. Then what would you say is your most memorable and like special traveling experience outside of the one where you left for the first time when you were 16, 17?
About 6 years ago, I was heading up an organization called Worley Parsons. They used to deliver projects all over the world. And we had the privilege of building a wind farm in a very remote part of Kenya called Lake Turkana, in the north on the border of Ethiopia.
Yes.
And it's a stunning place. Lake Turkana is one of the largest inland alkaline lakes with the largest concentration of Nile crocodiles. But Lake Turkana is right on the edge of the Great Rift Valley. So it was, the flight going to this place was astounding. So we got to this place called Wilson Airport, small airfield outside of Nairobi, jumped into a Cessna Caravan, and those things can land anywhere in Africa. Pilot takes off, and we sort of start off along the Great Rift Valley. Early in the morning, the sun's coming up, and as the sun's picking up, you see all these beautiful dormant volcanoes as you're heading north from Nairobi. Yeah. Beautiful low, it's green. You know, inside these volcanoes, it's got its own dormant volcanoes, own sort of ecosystem. And we're flying up north, and we're flying over these like lakes covered in pink, and it's pink pelicans. And as you're flying over, you can picture this as like these moments you see in the nature movies. The pelicans take off, the sun's reflecting off the lake, the pelicans are flying, and you're heading up north through this beautiful, pristine place on the continent. And you're circling Lake Turkana, and you're landing. As you see your turbines getting erected, you land on a runway, which you and your team have constructed. And the team that meets you in these 4x4s. You have Maasai security, tall men, incredibly gracious, strong men that keep you safe. And you in lion country, literally. And when you land in a place like that, it reminds you of the beauty of the continent. When you see the sunrise in a place like that, it's a memory that will never leave you. So that to me, Lake Turkana in northern Kenya on the border of Ethiopia, most beautiful memories of just people and culture and unspoiled.
So the Maasai guys told you that to become an elder, you must go kill a lion?
Yeah, they did. And I mean, they walk around with these well-used rifles, right? I mean, the barrel is skewed, so even if the guy stood, he probably couldn't shoot you because it's going to go that way. But still, they've got their rifles, they've got their spears, and incredibly proud people when you interact with them and you listen to their stories. It's just a beautiful part of our continent. So that to me is a great memory.
Was funny because I had opportunity to employ people at our Kenya organization. Yeah. And employ this guy, Maasai guy, to run one of the businesses. Like, you know, we Maasai people, we like to have livestock, and if anybody is messing up with it, like lion ate my cow, I'm gonna find it and kill it. You know.
And they will.
They do. I mean, I've seen those stories, and like. And you're saying, you know, for South Africa, you know, I like Zulu people, the way they dance and play with the spears and all that. I was like, it's different, bruh. It's not the same. You know?
I mean, to Maasai, their cows are almost sacred. They raise them like children. I mean, and they can tell you, this one is born of that one, and that one is actually connected to that one by birth. And they'll tell you a story about their cows. It's incredible.
but I remember my guy, Johnson, he couldn't come to work because they lost his bull, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
He lost his bull, or someone else lost his bull?
I mean, they're always very connected to that. I mean, to the extent that it's so deep, and hopefully we'll have a Maasai guest here, and you'll get close to it and understand. Even when they greet, they ask, how are the cows? How are the kids? And then the wife.
In that order.
You know, so,
in that order.
Yeah. So there are livestock, the cows, they rank here, the kids here, the wife somewhere there.
Denver, something I would like to know is, like, what is the most adventurous thing that you've done? Since you said you've traveled, you've seen all the continents, you've traveled a lot. What is the crazy? It doesn't even have to be the craziest thing, even.
It probably has to be. I've got a few of those stories, but the one that impressed on me most was I was 17 years old and I went on a camp. It was called Felt and Flay, and it was like a survival camp for young kids at school.
Survival.
And you did some incredible things, like wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and swim naked across a frozen lake in the middle of the winter in Grabo, and the water is freezing. But this particular incident was I was nominated the patrol leader by my peers, and we had a team of about 10 of us, and we did a 3-day hike through the mountains of the Hottentots Holland Mountains in Somerset West. And it was a good day. It started out quite nice, but as we got to the summit, the thing about those mountains is the clouds come in quickly. So the cloud cover came in, the rain came in, visibility was terrible, and these were the days before cell phones. So all you had was your map on your Soonto compass, and you had to navigate.
Wow.
But we couldn't see quite clearly because visibility was terrible. And I was leading my patrol, right? And what happened was one of the members of our team, Bradley, he slipped and he fell into a river. It wasn't very deep, but the river was freezing cold, and the wind chill factor had put him into a hypothermic state. So within a matter of minutes, Bradley the steam was coming out of his body, and he was going to die if we didn't get to help. And we like kids, right? You're 16, 17 years old. You're in these mountains, stormy mountains in the Cape. One of your team members has hypothermia. There's no cell phones. There's no radios. We had to survive the night. And so we couldn't backtrack. And so, being the team leader, I had my team erect a bivvy. So we had some sort of a shelter. And the rain is bucketing down because it's July in the Cape. It's windy and it's wet.
It's rainy season.
First thing we had to do, get the sleeping bags out. We had to strip Bradley off his clothes because the only way to get heat into the body is from one human body to another. And so I'm in the sleeping bag with Bradley. We've got him. His teeth are chattering. I'm starting to chatter because it's cold. And man, it was the longest 2 hours of my life. I thought he was going to die. And we're just kids, man. We're 16, 17 years old. And it was after 2 hours, the other members of the squad were able to get the little gas stove going. We got a cup of coffee. We heated him up. We stabilized him. And man, we were so overjoyed. It was like an incredible moment because we literally saved his life on this hike. And in a few hours, the rain lifted up a little bit. We had to camp there at that spot. But the next morning, very early, we headed back down to the mountain and we navigated back to the camp. But that was just an adventurous experience, which that was really cool.
That probably bonded you guys after.
Oh man, we're still in touch, right? We're still in touch because we came from different schools and they stuck us into these groups, and that was a moment we will remember forever. Yeah.
Wow. So in that situation, what was going through your head? Like, you're the team leader.
Look, you're a 17-year-old kid, right? There's no, you look back at that and the natural option is you want to romanticize the history. I was structured in my thoughts. I was calm and I was calculated. I was panicking because I'm a kid. But again, you've been trained and you've been taught the basics of navigation. And again, the Boy Scouts, the Boys Brigade that I grew up in, we were taught these things. And again, as a young kid coming out of a township, a colored township, you get exposed to this, you absorb these skills. And man, all I can say is we just went on to autopilot mode. There was a lot of panicking, screaming, worrying, but in the end, it worked out.
You still today VP of Honeywell. You're not a robot, right? You're a real human being with feelings. Some days are tough.
Yeah.
You know.
Just pinch him there to see if he feels
Yeah,
it.
let me check. It's a robot. It doesn't feel anything. How do you deal with stress? How do you handle that? Because you know, as a corporate CEO, I know it from my side of the world. You know, you're on a treadmill, right? You want to
Yeah.
get off and drink water. They pass you water, dial up the speed on the treadmill, and you know, keep going. You know, this is an American company. Time is money. Let's go. How do you deal with stress that comes with, you know, I mean, what's around you?
It's hard, right, Peter? I don't think there's one magic bullet to answer to it. But I mean, like we said at the start of the conversation, I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm physically fit, right? So my fitness levels are important. I ground myself spiritually, because if I'm not grounded spiritually, I'll become arrogant and not grounded in humility. So my faith is important. My family is important, because without that family, I mean, that's my support structure that I go home to. An incredible stable house run by my wife. And it's just a place where I find love and where I'm heard, right? So my faith, my family, and then my fitness is important, because again, when I'm physically fit and strong at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock at night, I'm still sharp. My brain is switched on because I've got that balance. And granted, I mean, we talk about work-life balance. I think it's a bit of a fallacy. The concept that you're going to find this magical place where it's all balanced doesn't work. It's about trade-offs. It's about conscious trade-offs. There's times when I know, and I'll tell Brunhilde, my wife, listen, for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be tough, honey. It's that week. And she knows that I'm going to be totally out of balance, but when it's done, I'm going to come back to some sort of normality. And so I live with those trade-offs. I'm comfortable with those trade-offs. I've learned not to seek this nirvana where it's completely balanced and life is perfect, because that doesn't happen.
I mean, I remember when I embarked on MBA, I think you're still at primary school, I got my wife who sat down, honey, I'm going to do MBA. That's going to be tough. I've seen people divorce with this, but we love each other. We're good. We're not going to divorce, but I want you to support me, to be on my side and all that. And, you know, of course, the company sponsored my MBA, but said, look, you know, Peter, you're doing well. We don't want you to drop the work.
Yeah.
You know, keep the balance, okay? And I had to also keep the balance at home. And I think midway, halfway, I was sleeping 4 hours. I was bringing books in the bed, because speed reading and all that. There were books everywhere in the house. And then, you know, that dreaded moment, honey, we have to talk. You know? And it's like, you know, this is my life. And fortunately, she kind of understood that we're at the lowest and we're about to take off and have a financial freedom, which I promised. And, you know, it's the whole story about, you know, work-life balance, which is, it means different things to different people.
Yeah.
The question I want to ask you is about, how do you switch off from, you know, because sometimes, as you say, 2 weeks of really business planning, financial planning reviews and all that, and it just...
So I'll answer you in 2 words. Joburg traffic. That's how I switch off. You know, in the past, when we were working in lockdown conditions, that was really hard for me to switch off, because the lines between who I was and who the organization was became blurred. People know they could reach you on a Teams call any time of the day, any time of the morning. And so it became very hard to segment your life. But having recently gone back to a 3-2 rotation, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, I now spend almost 5 days in the office. I find that my drive to work and my drive back home from work is a time that's very powerful for me. It's a 35-minute drive, depending on traffic. But I've got a very particular routine that I use to help me transition. So, and it doesn't always work perfectly, but in most cases, my transition starts, I get into the car, I've either got my playlist, depending on the mood that I'm in terms of music, or I've got a list of podcasts that I line up. or it's just my time to actually have conversations with myself. It's the most intelligent conversation of the day sometimes, just to talk to yourself.
Are these conversations better than the one you have with Knox?
I don't actually, that's debatable. No, that one was good. But I find that, that 35, 40 minutes in the car, people moan about traffic, but to me it's a blessing because I can sit there and I can use that time and I use it to help me transition. Now, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes, I guess 75% of the time, I get to the front door and I'm actually detoxed. So when I walk in, I can start to be present. But there are times when I'm not and I walk in and I've still got the hangover of a very stressful call. But normally it's my transitions, Peter. That's how I try to manage that, using my traffic time.
Yeah, I mean, interesting stuff because, and maybe Matlatso will share the real side of the intel of the domestic me. I mean, it just used to give me a joy, every time I was going home and I'll come to a playlist. I get my kids waiting for me at the door, like they'll say, "Daddy," hug me and all that.
I was going to say, you still do that.
And I was telling them about this, and they pranked me. Now, recently, when they were home, and I was coming back, and they were like waiting for me. Like it felt so awkward.
I think what you said about the drive home and just appreciating the traffic to give you time to just switch off.
Yeah.
I think I should have that mindset when I drive home from work, because especially now when it's day 6 traffic and you're just in, like, you have to accept the traffic. And like the taxi's driving crazy, that in a way you feel like they're just bringing you down even more. So I think that mindset, I should take that mindset on when I'm driving home from work, just to be like, okay, this is just time to myself, and just maybe play a song or two, or just have a conversation with myself, or just talk through how I'm feeling and what I've gone through with the day, just so I can be like, okay, I've processed everything that happened.
Get a great podcast. I'm reading a book now by David Goggins. He's a ex-US Marine, titled "You Can't Hurt Me." And I'm sort of into him, so I'm watching the videos, I get it on Instagram, and I've got this podcast where I just listen to a few interviews, and it's magic. You get people's lives condensed into a 30-minute slot, and no matter what that taxi's doing, I actually want them to drive slower so I can finish the podcast before I get home. It's crazy, I know.
Okay, so that's a piece of advice I think I'll take for myself and implement in my own life. But when you get home, Dad, I don't know, like usually it's, "Hello, honey, I'm home." Like, I don't know, you come with the energy that nothing's touched you that whole day. You fine. But then, I don't know, that's if you come through like the garage and then you go through the kitchen and then you hear mom's cooking or something. That's when you'd probably hear that. And then if it's just me, or you see me and you come through the front door, it's just, it's normal. It's like, "Hey, Tats, how's it?" But I don't ever really feel like, I don't know, you're clouded with work, like thoughts of work and the whole day. You usually, I don't know, keep it together, Dad. Maybe you need to let your guard down a little bit when you walk through the front door and be like, "Oh, thank God I'm home," or something like that.
Would you say you've got the coolest dad on the planet?
I don't know about any other person's dad. Yes. Maybe if you get Jordans, you'll be on the contending list there. But overall, I would say if you have work to do, you just be like, okay, either go straight to the study or you eat, and then it's like, okay, I just have a little bit more work to do, and then But overall, I don't think that the stress from the day, you really bring it home and it affects you, and we see something's bothering you. Usually, if you're feeling like it, I'd either, like when I come downstairs, I'd either see my dad with a glass of wine after dinner, or if he feels like it, he starts cracking open the whiskey, and then it's like, do you want a drink when he sees me? And I'm like,
You know what's the best test I find is the best test is Sunday night at 6:30. Because if you're in a job that you hate doing or there's a lot of stress, that's the time when you start to think about the week ahead. And you can actually start to become a very different person. When I went through a time in my career when life was hard and I went through a tough time having to let people go in a tough economic environment, 6:30 on the Sunday was that trigger time when I changed.
Don't want to
And
go
even
to school tomorrow.
my kids would say, Dad, you're different. Or Brunhilde would say, look, just give Dad some space. And that's normally a good indication. So Sunday nights is it tells you how you feel about work and where you're at mentally.
the problem with that, right, is that he's a football fan. So Sunday, the weekend, if it depends if Arsenal
Who's the
won,
team? Oh, it's Arsenal.
it's
Okay.
Arsenal.
So that could be
So
an up
like,
and down experience.
This past weekend was a good weekend. Arsenal beat Man United, 3-1. So, but also you ran away from that game. You just weren't there to watch the game. But then at dinner, you're asking me the next day, did you watch the game? So happy about it.
So, confession, Denver. Story that you don't know. I used to have my family together.
Yeah.
We're all supporting Arsenal in the good days. And Arsenal starts stuttering, not doing well. And, I still say the saddest day, he came to me and said, Dad, I'm done with Arsenal.
Wow.
Found my own team that I'll support. And I was like,
Wow.
supporting a team is like the town that you live in. It's like family. You don't ever leave,
Yeah, there
It's
goes
like,
his inheritance.
It's like,
At that point.
I think since I was like a lad, like 7 years old, around there, my dad was just, okay, first of all, always, every time he traveled, it was a new football jersey from somewhere.
Yeah.
I got Zidane's football jersey from Madrid. I got Ronaldinho's Barcelona jersey. I got Thierry Henry's Arsenal jersey. I still have all three of those jerseys,
that's
by the
love.
way.
That's love.
What else did I get? I think I got Neymar's as well when he was at Barcelona. This was my own choice. I got Cavani's when he was at PSG because I really liked Cavani. Don't hate me for liking Cavani, please.
Kylian Mbappe is the only name for PSG in our family.
And then at that time, I was like, oof. Because my dad was like, in this house, you just support Arsenal. There's no other team. There was like, okay, I was like, okay. I wasn't with this dictatorship style of leadership that my dad was doing. I was like, nah, okay. I didn't choose Arsenal. Arsenal was just given to me at that point.
Inherited.
And then it was like, I think when I was like really getting into football, like started understanding, breaking everything down. And I was like, because I'd also just watch the games with my dad. And it's like, we didn't just watch Arsenal play. We watched all the other teams play. And it was just like, I see promise somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't support
So
Arsenal.
it was his coming of age then to choose his own team?
I had to sit him down and be like, Dad, I don't know if you need a drink before I tell you this or something, but I know you need to sit down. But he was like, when I told him, he was like, how could you do this to me? You're leaving me alone, all this thing. And I was like, but Tippy still supports Arsenal. I was like, Tippy supports any team that I tell her to support. I need you to support Arsenal, all this thing. So it was an emotional day for him. For me, it was just getting this off my chest at this point.
I kind of collect movies and music.
Uh-huh.
And what sort of music do you listen to? I mean, like...
Peter, I grew up in a space where my father loved Otis Redding. He loved Dionne Warwick. He loved Earth, Wind and Fire. He was just a Motown type person.
Yeah.
And to me, music is like a playlist, right? There's a great radio station called P4 in Cape Town.
Yes, I listen to it
And
sometimes.
on Sunday evenings, they go way back. And music is like a time machine. A great song, just thinking about it, the hair on my arms go up. A great song takes you back to moments when, the fonder moments in life, when the family was together around a table, or it was somebody's 21st or a wedding. And so I absolutely love music. Music's power and ability to regenerate a human being is astounding. So I love music. I've got these playlists depending on how I feel. I've got a laid-back playlist. I've got a feeling edgy playlist. I've got a Barack Obama playlist. Right? So okay, in my mind, right, when I think of Barack, I think of somebody who portrays a level of confidence. Right? When he stands up there and he talks, I think that's what I want to be. And there's certain images and types of music that are aligned with that, right? That gets me, that makes me feel motivated. And
wow.
So, and the thing is, what I do is I'll program these lists based on how I feel or the feeling that I want to evoke. And so some days I'm just feeling laid back. It's a Friday afternoon, so I'm going to pop in my Cape Flats jazz.
Easy
Robbie
going.
Jansen, it'll be Robbie Jansen, Basil Manenberg could see. It'll be just saxophone jazz on the way back home. And so the music will cool me down. It'll calm me down. It's beautiful. I love my music.
Do your kids also like your music?
Oh, they do. Well, you know, they don't admit to it. But if my daughter's in a car and she's got a playlist, I'll see elements of my playlist come through. And then when I'll catch her, I'll say, "So you do like that?" She says, "Yeah, Dad, it's nice." And you'll soon see, you listen to the music your father listened to. It just happens with time. And before you know it, you look and you act just like your dad. And that's just the way the world works, right? So, yeah.
I told you.
What do you I'm proud of my dad for being open-minded enough to be like, okay, the new stuff, I like the new stuff. I see how it is. But also for him as a person, it's like, this is where I come from, and showing us the music that he likes. Like back in the day when I was like 7, 8, even younger, when you still were driving the Silver 3 Series, what were you always play? Was it Babyface or what was it? Yo, you see,
love songs.
You see this?
The best songs going to Nelspruit, White River.
You see this, right? That album, or whichever albums it was, he overplayed it, because that was a time where his taste in music was still old. It wasn't old and modern and everything in between. So he played so many of these people's songs into the ground that I just can't listen to that stuff anymore.
You're not ready.
Maybe, yeah, and that was your fault, Dad, because you played too much.
But Mutlatsi, one day you're going to be sitting in the car with your son, and you're going to be on a long trip somewhere, and a song of Babyface is going to come on, and you're going to be transported right back into that silver BMW. And you're going to go, you know what? My dad played this song. You know, Papa loved this song, man. And then you're going to tell a story.
You see, yes, that is fine. 20 years into the future, when I've still like gotten another 20 years not to listen to these songs, then yes, that will happen, and I'll be able to have those moments with my own kids saying, my dad used to play this all the time.
Any parting words?
Maybe to the listeners out there, you know, we all have our journeys, right? And I got here through incredible people, through incredible family and communities. And I think maybe the words I'd share with the listeners are, when you get the opportunity, take the opportunity. You know, there's nothing that beats passion and competence and confidence. I find that when those three things intersect, when your passion for life, for your topic, for people and what you do, intersects with your competence, and your third level of confidence comes in, because you're comfortable, you know what you can and should be doing, and that's when the magic happens. So don't be afraid to take opportunities, folks. You know, when it's out there, put your hand up, put yourself out there, and do the stuff nobody else wants to do, because that's the stuff that's going to differentiate you, and that's the stuff that's going to put you on that upward path in your particular journey. Wherever your journey may find, you may find yourself in your journey right now, and don't compare yourself to others, because, you know, joy can be or comparison can be the thief of joy. You know, you're on your own path, on your own journey, but take the opportunities presented to you. Live with passion, live with meaning, communicate with passion, live with that confidence. Man, and that's where the magic happens, when you get yourself into that space. Yeah.
Thank you very much for chilling with me and my son.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mutlatsi. Appreciate it.